Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Sandy Smith, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Jennifer Arnold. We warmly welcome the family of Private Raymond Morley Johnston, whose story will be told shortly. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is God by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
For those who are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Raymond Morley Johnson. Raymond Johnson was born on the 2nd of October 1907 in Kingston, part of the country town of Surrey in England. He was one of 3 sons born to Frederick and Maud Johnson. The family emigrated to Australia in August 1911, settling in Victoria. By the time the Second World War began, Johnson was living in Preston and working as a labourer. Raymond Johnson enlisted for service in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force at Caulfield on the 8th of July 1940, aged 32. He spent the next 4 months in training units in Victoria and Western Australia before being posted to the 2nd 29th Battalion. He was among the first soldiers to arrive at the battalion's camp at Bonegilla in late November, becoming a member of A Company. The 2nd 29th moved to Bathurst in New South Wales at the end of February 1941, joining the other 2 battalions in the brigade. After several months further training, the 2nd 29th Battalion sailed from Melbourne in late July, disembarking at Singapore 2 weeks later. In early September, the battalion moved into Malaya, where the men conducted jungle warfare training in preparation for the Japanese invasion. The battalion heard the news on the 8th of December that the Japanese had landed and there was fighting at Kota Bharu. However, the battalion did not see any fighting until mid-January 1942, when the Japanese reached Johore. The 2nd 29th first encountered the Japanese at Bakri on the 17th of January. With the aid of an anti-tank unit, the men repulsed the direct assault, but were forced to withdraw after being outflanked. Their withdrawal route was blocked by the Japanese, however, and after attempting to force their way through at Parat Sulong, the surviving Australian and Indian troops took to the jungle, attempting to reach British positions at Yongpeng. Unable to be evacuated, wounded Australian and Indian troops and some medical personnel had to be left behind. Of those, 133 men were murdered by the Japanese. Johnson was one of only 130 men from the 2nd 29th to reach British positions at Yongpeng. Here the battalion was reinforced by 500 replacements, many of whom were poorly trained. Limited jungle training took place, but the battalion was withdrawn to Singapore Island by the end of January. When the Japanese crossed the Strait of Johore on the night of the 8th of February, the battalion was sent to Tenga Airfield to support the Australian 22nd Brigade, which bore the initial attacks. The 2nd 29th fought to hold the airfield throughout the next day, but was eventually forced to withdraw. The following week saw the battalion withdraw, in contact with the enemy, with individual platoons often fighting their way out to rejoin their units. By the 13th of February, surviving members of the battalion, including Private Johnson, were in positions near Tanglan Barracks, west of Singapore City. It was a bitter pill to swallow for the men when 2 nights later, the order to cease fire was given. The survivors became prisoners of the Japanese. After being marched 27 kilometres to Selarang Barracks, working parties began almost immediately. These ranged from burying bodies of Chinese people who had been executed on Changi Beach to working on the docks in Keppel Harbour. In April 1943, Johnson was one of 5,000 British and Australian soldiers who were told they were to be moved to Thailand to a rest camp. Some 900 sick men were selected to be part of this group, designated as F Force. Instead of the promised rest camps, the men were forced to work on the Burma-Thailand Railway, enduring hellish conditions. The men worked through monsoon rains and dealt with disease outbreaks, including cholera, dysentery, malaria, and beriberi. With food and medicine in short supply, combined with the relentless demands of the Japanese, the death toll soared. By October, some 44% of the force had died. When Air Force began arriving back at Changi in November, the survivors resembled walking skeletons. Johnson returned, but his health had broken down beyond recovery. He was hospitalised, suffering from cachexia, a wasting disease, along with pneumonia and meningitis. He succumbed to his illnesses, dying on the 27th of December, 1943. Johnson's remains were recovered after the end of the war and reinterred at Cranji War Cemetery. The epitaph on his headstone reads, "His duty fearlessly and nobly done, ever remembered." He was 36 years old. One of Johnson's brothers, Harold, joined the Royal Australian Air Force in April 1942, serving in stores units, including a period of time on Bougainville from December 1944 until August 1945. He returned to Australia. Raymond Johnson's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Raymond Morley Johnson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them. Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.